my name is John Cogley and welcome to In the Artist Studio. Today we're with Brenda Swenson. Brenda is a phenomenal artist. She's a Daniel Smith brand ambassador. She's from California. I hope you enjoy her tips and techniques and walking around her studio as much as I did. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brenda Swenson and you are in my studio with me here in South Pasadena, California. I have been in this space for about 5.5 years. I worked at a home studio for about 20 years before that, but I outgrew the space. I took over 2 bedrooms and just about every closet in the house with all of my workshop supplies and paintings. So when it came time to move into a bigger space, moving into this spot was just like a godsend for me. It's less than 1/8 of a mile from my home. I walk here most days. There is other people in this commercial space. There's 5 businesses here. And my studio is upstairs, which I love because nobody's walking by and pressing their noses against my window when I'm working. So I like being upstairs. Lots and lots of good and natural light. And it has just been a really wonderful space for me to grow in. It's between 800 and 900 square foot. It depends upon where you're measuring from, but a big, wonderful space, and it is a multi-purpose space. This is my private studio. I also teach small workshops in this space, and it's also used as my gallery. So I have lots of paintings on the wall that are my work, but there's as many paintings by people that I admire, that have inspired me, that have taught me, people who have been my friends. I like being surrounded by artwork that lifts me up, encourages me, and challenges me. So you'll get to see some of those paintings as we do the walk through my studio. I started off painting probably in my late 20s. I was taking classes through the community college in Pasadena. I took every class, art class I could get a hold of: drawing, design, illustration, painting. And the last class that I took was a watercolor class, and that changed the world for me. So in my early 30s, I was introduced to watercolor. From there, I joined an art association and immediately became involved in the National Watercolor Society and Watercolor West. I served on their boards. One was for 4 years, and then NWS, I served 2 different terms as the exhibition director. So you could say I got my feet wet in watercolor pretty quick and got a lot of really good experience and had wonderful mentors. And I'm still involved in those associations in some way today. It's just good to find professional groups to get involved with. Let me see. Has watercolor always been my medium? Yeah, it's what attracted me. I do use the medium for collage, for sketching, for painting, and I think that's why I'm so attracted to it, is that watercolor is extremely diverse. And whether I'm sketching and traveling, or if I'm doing studio work, it works for everything that I do. So with that, let me take you on a little tour of my studio, and then we'll end up back at my desk. So here's a view across my studio. It's kind of a pie shape, and you'll notice that there are a lot of windows. Right now I have the shades pulled down just because the camera was struggling with being able to switch the light between indoors and outdoors. So here's a little area called the Nook, where I enjoy having friends over, grabbing a cup of coffee, and talking about art stuff. And into here is the big catch-all, the storage room, and of course coffee. Gotta have coffee. Across is what you will see is a lot of things for workshops. So whether it's supplies for teaching, down here more supplies for teaching. I also use this room for photography. This is a piece that I've recently done. It's a stained paper collage. You may not be familiar with this in my work, but it literally is Japanese papers that are used in the process. It's a very thick 300-pound support, and all of it is covered with Japanese papers and painted. Here's a few more pieces. The surface can get to be very complex and interesting and different. This piece is a 22 by 30. And back across, you can see into the studio and matted works, frames, shipping boxes, all of that important stuff. So into my studio space here, when I'm teaching workshops in this space, anywhere between 3 to 7 tables are set up within here. And it gets to be a nice kind of intimate place to sit and teach and be together. The paintings you see on the wall, many of them are by people that I admire, that have been mentors. Here we have Ian Stewart. This is Gerald Brommer. A couple paintings of mine, Chris Van Winkle and Judy Schroeder over here. So many of the works in here are by other people, though the majority on this wall is my work. As I said earlier, I also use this space as a gallery. So across over here is a painting by Bill Hook. And this area, this is a painting that I've just recently finished. It's a negative painting of Matilahaw poppies, and I'm getting ready to have a video come out, and it is not this painting, but it is this technique through Creative Catalyst Productions. So before I decide that I'm done with it, I'm just working a little bit larger, getting really good at my skills to get ready for that video. My fascination with fountain pens I have around, paintings that I'm putting back to take a look at, books, lots of books to read, inspiration. And over here is the cupboard that I keep all of my sketchbooks in. As many of you might know, I'm a pretty avid sketcher. This isn't all of my sketchbooks. I've got many more at home. These are more of the recent years. And I work a couple different ways. I'll talk about this sketchbook in a minute, and I will also grab another one to put there on the table. This is my desk. I love this desk. It was built by my husband. I told him what I needed, and he was able to build it for me. Love having the foot below to rest my feet on when I'm standing. Right in there, lots of good storage space. So here's another painting. I am just finishing up, final touches. Again, negative painting. And my desk, my palettes, lots of brushes and pens. And I guess if I speak of pens, people are always eager to know where I keep my fountain pens, since it's really a big part of what I do. So here's a collection of my fountain pens. So they're not just a collection, but I do use all of these for sketching with. I enjoy the feel of that pen. So back over to my desk. Yeah, and see what I'm up to here. Negative painting, lots of transparent color, and building glazes. You can see this is a larger studio palette, and it's called a Pike's palette. And let me get the camera set up and I will show you some of my other supplies. I basically work in two kinds of sketchbooks when I'm outdoors. This is a 10 by 11 that I make. I assemble the watercolor papers and drawing papers ahead of time, and then as I am out painting and I feel inspired that maybe I want to work on a toned surface, then that is when I would use one of these pages. So this is a Canson Metiens pastel paper, and it handles watercolor very nicely. Here I have just traditional 140-pound watercolor paper. Obviously this is not a plein air piece, this was in the studio. Grandchild, plein air painting, and still life. So this is one that I make, and then this is a store-bought Stillman and Burn. It's the Beta 10 by 8, and I use this a lot when I'm traveling, when I'm teaching. This one, I happen to be in Tuscany. This day I was in Siena. A painting you saw a little bit earlier was inspired by what happened this day as I was sketching. So this is the sketchbooks that I use. When it comes to the types of brushes, I use a variety. Synthetics for large washes, natural hair for, well, when I need, this is a little bit bigger one, it's a 14. So this is a natural hair Da Vinci Mastro that I use in my larger paintings. Here you'll see some synthetics, and you'll notice that there's tape on the bottom. These are brushes that I have a tendency to abuse. I will use them in ink, as you can see here. I'll use them with collage. So brushes that I would use with collage, I would not use with my traditional paintings, because there's matte medium, there's gesso, all that would get inside those brushes. When it comes to my palettes, you saw my studio palette, and this is a plein air palette. It is made by Craig Young in England. I've had it for a long time, probably about 15 years. I like it because of the removable tray that I can create large puddles. I don't take this when I travel. Mainly I use it near home because it is one of those palettes that's made out of brass and enamel, and it gets to be quite heavy. But when I'm home and painting local, I frequently will use this. I'm often asked about colors and what colors are my favorite. That is probably one of the hardest questions I can think of, because I am constantly playing and exploring colors. This is some of the Daniel Smith pigments, all Daniel Smith here, and I'm playing with different mixtures to see what kind of reaction I can get. Do I prefer transparent or opaque or granulating? I love transparent. I need transparent for negative painting, but the other side is that I love granulation. It's the texture, the life that I see in pigments that really, really excite me. French ultramarine blue particularly gives me that. So you'll notice like my Matilla painting you just saw. These are the three colors I used in the underpainting. So I'm constantly doing all sorts of different swatches. I am kind of pushing the boundaries of what I know with watercolor through mixing. And I am in love with the Daniel Smith paints. I have been using them for probably close to 20 years. People ask me often, what's your favorite color? I don't have one. But I think something that might really surprise people is that even though they don't think of me as using black, lunar black is absolutely stunning. And I use it quite often to get texture and granulation. What you'll know about this is that it doesn't change the pigment of another color that I mix it with. This is the Quin Rose, and this is the Green Gold. but it is a transparent black that is just very, very exciting. So if I had to choose, I think the colors that, if I had to choose a limited palette, it would probably be quinacridone burnt orange, French ultramarine blue, Hansa yellow, and lunar black. I just love, I use this for hair and all sorts of interesting textures. So there's a little bit of information about color. I have become obsessed with color over the years, and here is a book of just color swatches. And this is how I learned, is through making these swatches. I've looked at all different brands and what they do. And it's through exploring all these different companies that I've landed with Daniel Smith as being the colors on my palette. So it's sincere, love the pigments. This is my dot card with the colors that I'm currently using. So with that being said, thank you for coming into my studio. And I hope that everybody is staying safe and well and creative. And one way or another, we're going to get through all of this, and we're going to come out on the other side eager and excited and ready to get back together again. So stay well, my friends.
Thank you, Brenda, for walking us around your studio and giving some tips and techniques. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did.